believe it was at Marshall's or TJ Maxx, and it was on sale. I ended up getting it because I've been wanting to make bread for the longest time. I've already made a lot of artisan bread and sourdough bread, but I've been really wanting to make a braided loaf. Doesn't this just look so delicious? I haven't read the whole recipe yet. The prep takes 2 hours and 5 minutes. The cooking time takes under 30 minutes. And the cooling time takes 50 minutes. But first, let's go make ourselves a little coffee. Perfection. I've been making my coffee in to-go cups because I hate cold and lukewarm coffee. I always want to drink it super hot. Let's get this bread started. I'm gonna be needing for today's recipe. I will be putting on my apron halfway just because I want to look cute but still be kind of protected. The first ingredient that the recipe calls for is 3/4 of a cup of warm water. It's supposed to be between 95 to 110 Fahrenheit. So I have the water right here. I'm just gonna pour it all into this big bowl because this is the bowl that I'm gonna let it rise in. 3/4 of a cup going in. 1/4 ounce packet of active dry yeast. I only have this very big packet of dry yeast. I looked it up and a 1/4 ounce packet of active dry yeast equals to 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. 1 teaspoon and 1/4 of a teaspoon. Next, the recipe calls for 3 teaspoons of sugar. So we're gonna have this. 1, 2, 3 teaspoons. Now I'm just gonna whisk this until the sugar kind of dissolves into the water, and I'm gonna let it sit for 5 minutes. Okay, so the 5 minutes have passed and my yeast is ready to be used. I was reading the steps to the recipe and I just realized I completely just did my own thing, because now that I'm reading it, you're supposed to combine 1 teaspoon of the sugar with 1/4 of a cup of the warm water and the yeast. After the 5 minutes, you're supposed to put it in a stand mixer and then add the remaining 2 teaspoons of sugar, the salt, and the remaining water. And then you just start adding all of your ingredients slowly and let it knead for 5 minutes in medium speed. Obviously, the stand mixer is not in the room with us, so I'm going to be kneading this bread by hand for the full 5 minutes. If you're like me and this is your first time making a braided loaf, girl, we are on the same boat. If you want to watch me make all the mistakes first and then you give it a go, I suggest you watch the whole video. We are already started with a few mistakes, but that's okay. I think it will turn out just fine. Since I don't have a stand-up mixer, I'm just gonna put all of the ingredients into the bowl and mix it myself. There's not really a pattern of which I'm gonna be adding the remainder of the ingredients, but I think I will do the liquid first, so the canola oil and the eggs first, and then I'm gonna add the salt and then finish off with the flour. Alright, so it's 3 tablespoons of canola oil. I have a 1/2 tablespoon, so I'm gonna be doing 6 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 1 teaspoon of salt. The recipe calls for kosher salt. I'm just doing pink Himalayan salt because that's what I have on hand. So 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 large eggs, 1, 2. Alright, so I'm just going to give this a quick little mix before I add in the flour. So I just want to make sure that all the liquids are combined together before I put in the flour, just so the eggs are evenly distributed. If you want to go in a different order, I think that's completely fine. but this is just the way that I'm doing it. So hopefully it turns out okay. Okay, time for the flour. So the recipe calls for 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I don't really like using cups. I'm just gonna go with grams. So 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour is equal to approximately 420 grams of all-purpose flour. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I have my scale on. I'm gonna put my bowl on top, and then I'm just gonna make sure I tare it before I start adding in the flour. That's 420 grams right there. I'm gonna move the scale off to the side. You never want to mix on top of your scale because you can mess it up like that. So always take off your bowl and put it on the table before you start mixing everything in. I'm just gonna whisk this up a little bit, and once the dough starts to get a little bit stickier, I'm gonna take it out and start putting in the arm work. I'm just gonna start kneading it like that. And then we are gonna put a 5-minute timer just to make sure that we're getting that gluten development. Honestly, if you're gonna mix it by hand, I would recommend a different method. I don't think a whisk is helping that much. Okay, I think I can take the dough out and start kneading it on the surface. So I'm just gonna put it in here. And you see how like sticky it is? Hopefully, the more I knit it, the more gluten development there will be. So it'll be less sticky than it is right now. But let's just try to get everything out of here. I'm gonna start the 5-minute timer and start knitting. And I don't want to add any more flour to this. It's just basically doing like what a hand mixer would do, and just mix the dough with the amount of ingredients that it already has. If I'm going to be adding any more flour, it will be until the end when I'm doing the dough shaping. I should have just kept it in the bowl, honestly. If you're watching my video before you make your own, I would suggest just leave the dough in the bowl. I don't think I needed to take it out on a mat just to mix it because it is very sticky, as you can see, and it is sticking, it's lifting up the mat, so it's just moving way too much for my liking. So if you just want to keep the dough inside the bowl, I think that would work very well. Alright everyone, the dough is in the bowl. First, I would definitely suggest keeping the dough in the bowl. And second, maybe use a silicone spatula. That worked 10 times way better than my hand. And I hate the feeling of like sticky dough on this, so I'm just gonna go take this off. We're gonna let the dough rest for 1 hour, and then we're gonna come back and see if it doubled in size. Dough is now resting. We're gonna let it go for about an hour, and in the meantime, I'm gonna be picking up my whole mess. You always want to pick up as you go because you don't want a messy kitchen. In my case, a messy dining table.
A little different than all the rest. I'm quite old-fashioned where I had sometimes played chess. And when I'm out, I'm looking for that vintage fling. But all complexions that I adore, so hard to find, these seem impossible to score. So I dream on to someday find that vintage love. I kept on looking, but everyone's such a bore. And out of a sudden, you came through the door. At the next table, your whiskey neat. The lights were dimmed as our eyes met, moves on me. careful, your whiskey neat. The lights were dimmed as our eyes met and you saw me. And forevermore, I'd like to share that vintage dream. And forevermore, we're living in that vintage dream.